Yes, I
Yeah.
No, I believe Liz is the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce tonight. Yes, and yours doing the presentation.
It's just a line. It's just part of a paragraph of a whole bunch of
No, I think there was always some.
I wouldn't think so, but I think probably. Okay, welcome to April Finance and Corporate Committee member. Some quiet would be appreciated over there, please. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have apologies from Councillor St Pierre, Andre Wiltons, and also Bronwyn Korahiki. And I think everyone else is here. Thank you, Mike. And thanks, Philip. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Disclosure of members' interests. Philip. Right. Okay. Thank you. And Roger, same. And Mighty River Domain. Any more? So you've got those there? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Late items. Oh, there being none, we'll go to confirmation of the order of the meeting. And Ken, there's no changes. Thank you, Councillor Webber. Thanks, Councillor Brown. All in favour? Contrary, no. Carried. Confirmation of the minutes. So we're looking at pages 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes. What page of the agenda is that, Mike?
Oh, yeah. Apologies for that, Mike. Right. That will be fixed.
All good. Where was I? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So thank you, Roger. And a second thanks, Marcus. Oh, you weren't there, Mike? I'll take that. So that's Roger, Mike. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. It's carried. Okay, Cambridge Town Hall Community Trust appointments.
Yeah. So look, through the chair, this is an information-only report. There's certainly nothing controversial, no decisions to be made. So yeah, so that's fine.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome, Bev.
Thank you. You have my report, and I assume we'll take that as read. The trust has, the trustees have been selected. I'm expecting that next Monday they will sign the final version of the trust deed. We've scheduled 5 Monday evenings in a row for their getting established induction process. We had the 3rd one of those last night. And I guess what I can share is that I feel very heartened about the group, and I think they're coming together really well. They're very keen and enthusiastic, but also taking that measured pace, very aware that they need to undertake a really effective community engagement process to really gather up a vision for the town hall. So yeah, I think it's a very positive step.
Great, thanks for that, Bev, and for the report. You do seem to have a really good mix of skills in there, which is obviously what you have been looking for. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? Well, we have the opportunity, Liz.
Yeah, look, I don't have a question, but look, obviously I was involved in the selection process, and just to follow on from your comments, there is a fantastic array of skills there. But most importantly, I just wanted to thank Bev actually. So Bev, you've been hugely instrumental in getting this group together, and yeah, your skill around leading this group to what I see already as a collaborative working team, and they have obviously a huge task ahead of them, and I know that we'll all be supporting them in that role. But yeah, your work to date, just thank you. Yeah, thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Liz, and I'd certainly support those comments.
Thank you.
So if there's Lou. So thanks. So yeah, we have the recommendation on page. Thank you. 17 of our report. I'm looking at the one we passed last month, so I better get to the right one. So that's A, B, C, and D. And seconder. Thanks, Marcus. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. It's carried.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So item 7, financial report for the period ending 31 March 2021. Do we have?
So this will be, is Sarah in the room? Oh, she's just walking the door. Yeah, so so look, Nada is on leave today, so Sarah is filling in. And Sarah, you're on right away.
Perfect timing. No, that's all good. While you're doing that, we'll just express our disappointment that you're leaving us, but best wishes for your future role, and congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I can't be very good at multitasking. Sorry, I thought I have 5 minutes. So, good afternoon. Obviously I'm presenting this report on behalf of NADA today. We've got, here we are. So the financial results for March, now you can see there's a few things we are noting along the way and have highlighted, so there might be a few questions, but I'll quickly run through it and then take some questions at the end. So total income is currently at 80% of forecast and operating expenditures at 97%. However, that's due to our asset database improvement that we did right before end of month. So we didn't have time to process the change through the system, the budget change, but that will be done this month and corrected. Vested assets of 21.4 million have been recognised to date, which will be pretty well where we sit at the end of the year. Discovered assets 7.3 million, and we've got development and reserve contributions of $3.4 million received to date. Subsidies and grants are at 66% of the budget, and the variance is due to the money received for the Three Waters program offset by the delay in capital works program of transportation. So in the significant activities, there's a table there that shows where we're at for the year. Now there are quite a few variations in those numbers, and the majority of those are because of timing. And then the 184% variance in roads and footpaths, that is again that database improvement, so that's just an anomaly that'll be fixed next month. So capital expenditure to date is 90.4 million, which is 68% of our forecast. And you can see on page 25 of the agenda, we've got our new Kpi report. Now that report showing where we're at with our key risks, it's showing where we're at with some of our key assumptions from the annual plan, and it's also showing where we're at with some of those delivery objectives and stuff like building consents. So the key things to note there probably are our off-track items and our at-risk items. So that is the delivery of the capital program against the annual plan budget, which as per our last meeting, I did say that was because our forecast is now substantially changed. So we actually won't hit the targets for those things, but just important to note, so our growth sitting at 15% with our target of 70%, renewals sitting at 51% with a target of 100%. So level of service does look like it'll get to its 80% target. Now, just probably one area I did want to discuss is the growth impact on rates. So we have, as per the last meeting, I did update you that we were doing some work to assess where we were at with our growth this year. We had a bit of a backlog from QV and now that's been caught up. So we're at 1.48% growth of a target of 2.4%. So that is very much at risk at this stage of the year and not looking like we're going to hit our growth targets, or unlikely, but we're not going to be too far off, hopefully. So that has a direct impact on rates, as you're aware, going to.
Yeah. Sorry, it's Mike.
Through the chair. Just I think only a few months ago we talked about we'd sort of never force sales for rates arrears. Is that sort of alluding to the fact, have I got that right, that we're going to enforce rating sales? Is that?
So I think what was mentioned, through the chair, sorry, I think what was mentioned is that we hadn't done a lot. And I know since Kirsten, our rates team leader, has been, or revenue team leader has been here, she hadn't done any, and she's been here 21 years, or is Kirsten here? 21 years? Am I? Oh, 31 years. Oh, yeah, sorry. 30. Yeah. So she hadn't done any. So that was what we were alluding to. But there are some that we brought a report to council in July. August last year, about beginning proceedings on those, and we have received judgment. So the next step in the process is to. Sorry.
Ken.
So look, just through the chair on that, I mean, my expectation, because I've been in local government for quite a while now, three different councils, and in effect in all of those councils, all three of those councils, there has never been a rating sale for 31 years or so, but in those councils we have got to this point before. So my full expectation is when you get to this point and you're talking about enforcing a rating sale, the ratepayer realises that council means business. They realise that they need to address this situation. So my expectation will be that they will rock up with the money, even if that goes right to the wire. I'd be hoping that we didn't actually have to enforce the rating sale, but it is important that we take the action that we do, because if you see the amounts there on page, what page is this of the agenda? It's page 26. You can see there is a significant amount involved here, to $27,000, and in fact a third one for $15,000. So we're talking about $42,000. It is not fair on the other ratepayers of the district that we don't take the action that we are taking.
So just do they have to incur costs on this, regardless if the sale's forced or not? There's obviously costs to chase this up. Do they get incurred on the ratepayer as well?
Yes, absolutely. So any costs of the enforcement process are passed on to the ratepayer. If this thing did proceed to a rating sale, and like I say, my genuine inclination is that it won't, because like I say, invariably they very rarely do. And if council actually sold the property, they could deduct any costs that there are, and then the net proceeds after costs would go back to the ratepayer.
Roger.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can I take you back to the statement of cost of services and the significant activity chapter? I see that the transportation. Sorry, forgetting. Operating expenditure at 184%. Now, irrespective of what the purpose is behind that increased expenditure, that actually represents, if you look at it, that the expenditure on a yearly basis, when we actually catch up to it, the expenditure is actually going to be double what the budget was. It's a question of process and whether do you have authority to spend double what the budget is without coming back to council before to seek approval for that additional expenditure?
People will take.
Yeah. So through the chair, councillor, if this was cash, absolutely, we wouldn't have that authority. Yeah, you just need to bear in mind that the huge driver here is non-cash write-offs of assets. So in other words, our accounting records were wrong. We've discovered those errors as part of a revaluation process. So these are non-cash write-offs of assets. Yes, it's going to have one heck of an effect on our surplus, but it's not non-cash. There is not a cent.
So it wasn't actually a purchase of anything. It's actually the write-off of that.
Yes, correct.
That explains it.
Thank you. And the write-off of revalued assets as well. I'm not saying there wasn't a cash component at some point, but there's certainly a lot of revaluation. Sorry.
And yeah, through the chair, we've done a lot of database improvement work over the last 4 years. So in the majority of time, we've had discovered assets come in. So we've always we've actually gained more assets than we've disposed of, but this time it just happened to be we left the more difficult area to last, which was the roading pavement layers, and that's because in the database they record a number of pavement layers, and as you can imagine, when they redo them, they add more onto them, and sometimes they double up. So, and actually tracking that takes quite substantial amount of work, so that's why we left that until just before the revaluation, unfortunately. But this was the only item that has had a negative effect on asset value. Everything else has had a positive effect over the last 4 years.
Shame you couldn't treat that as a separate expense item in some form of chart rather than looking as if it's.
Oh, okay. So through the chair, like some form of extraordinary item, so it's separated from the rest. Yeah. So we could perhaps have a little bit of a look at that when we come to prepare the annual report. But look, the accounting rules in regard to extraordinary items, etc., are quite tough. Yeah, they're quite specific. So So look, I'm not sure if we'd be able to actually separate it out. But look, if there is a way that we can do that, we can certainly look at doing that, because yes, if it has a major distorting effect, it would be nice to separate it out and be clear about that. Yeah,
it goes into other expenditure, and there'll be a footnote explaining, and it also affects one of our DIA benchmarks. So it'll show benchmark not met, unfortunately, because of that one area, but because of the way the rules work with what we can include and can't include in those benchmarks, even the ones where we get a positive gain on assets, they have to be put through that as well, because they don't count the discovered assets in that calculation, but they count the write-off of assets.
Yeah. So Mr. Chair, just while we're talking about that big write-off, so it does actually have a really positive benefit for us. So in terms of depreciation, which we fund, because we are so in the LTP we're fully funding depreciation on assets. Just bear in mind that we're writing off a huge amount of assets here that we would normally be funding depreciation on. So this is quite helpful. That even though it's going to basically play around with our annual report. For the LTP, it will be quite helpful that we have identified a whole lot of assets that we no longer need to depreciate. So that will be a saving in depreciation expenditure. The only thing though, even though I'm painting that picture, the only thing though is obviously we are revaluing our roading assets. We are quite worried with the genuine ones that still remain that we are going to have a spike in depreciation, but this will help to offset or to soften that spike.
Just to clarify my understanding, if we have an asset revaluation and the asset value goes up considerably,
yes,
as it did with the roading revaluation going back, a year and a half ago, that amount, my understanding, that amount wasn't shown as a revenue. It was shown as a balance sheet.
Yes,
balance sheet variation.
Oh, so so the accounting treatment for that increase in valuation would have been an increase in the value of the asset. Yes, the gain on revaluation would have gone to a reserve rather than coming through the P&L. But that would obviously have increased the depreciation that we had to charge through rates.
Yeah, realise that. But again, when you've got an asset revaluation which takes it down, which is what this one did, should it not go counter to the same reserve?
Technically, it's not a revaluation.
No.
No, so it was as
So
a
that's
result of
right.
database improvement work rather than the revaluations. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to get it out of the P&L.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Look. We will have through the chair. We will have plenty of opportunity to explain it, even if we can't show it as a separate line. There will be plenty of opportunity to explain it in the financial statements. Yeah.
You know, Mr. Chairman, just wondering whether when you have that bigger variation, a little note in it would be quite helpful just to get the councillors
Yes.
just what's going. Because I was going to ask the same question before, Roger, but that's all cool.
Oh, okay. So through the chair. So we.
I mean, if we get 103% or something, it's no big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Councillor, on the first page of the report we're looking at, so page 22 of the agenda, we do note, this write-off, and in fact we actually underlined it. So I appreciate we didn't perhaps say the amount involved, but we were certainly very clear that this is a very extraordinary item that does have impact on the P&L. So we were looking to draw your attention to it there.
Through the chair, it is further highlighted as well on page 23, but just below that table that talks about the 184%.
Yeah.
So I'll just finish off. So we did briefly jump to the rates before I had sort of talked about it, but we've got rates outstanding, rates set for the year of 62.1 million. The amount outstanding from prior years is 105,000, and as you can see, those amounts make up almost half of what we've got outstanding, and then there's a balance of 441 outstanding for the current year prior to the billing of the final instalment. Water rates, we've got 10.8 million invoice for the year. Amount outstanding is 1.24 million. There's been prepayments of 142,000, leaving a total owing of 1.1 million. But as you see on the report, actually it didn't mention it there, but on the report, the current owing amount includes the charges not yet due of 853,000. So the majority of that is not yet due.
Thanks. So Ken.
So just through the chair again. So sorry, if I could just take the meeting back to page 25, that key risk indicator report, because Sarah, I think we may have moved on to that rating sale thing a little bit earlier than anticipated. So Sarah, I just thought so a couple of things from me. Sarah, I did think it might just be worth just talking about that impact on rates. So you did mention we were 1.48% versus the 2.4%. I think it might be quite helpful to indicate to the meeting that that does have some implications for the long-term plan that we're going to be deliberating on next month. So just hold that thought, and perhaps if you could just talk to that. I think you should. I think we should also just highlight that this was a little bit of a surprise to us, and it's particularly a surprise when you look at the building consents figures. So you can see building consents up 31% on the prior year. So I was a little bit surprised that our building inspectors are absolutely flat out busier than ever, and yet we didn't quite meet, or it looks like we're not going to meet our growth target. So I think it's just worth talking about that. And then the other thing that I just wouldn't mind if we could just have perhaps some feedback. This is the first time that you have seen this key risk indicator report. It's newly developed. We did promise it maybe three or 4 months ago. So I'd just be quite interested in comment from the elected members as to whether it is helpful. So but Sarah, did you just want to talk a little bit further about that growth number?
Sure. Through the chair. So we have obviously we're almost you know, we've only got 2 months left of the year, or actually 3 months at the time this was run, and we are at 1.48% growth of our target of 2.4%. Now, that 2.4% is what's been assumed for the LTP, so the starting rate. So in order to get your 4.1% rates increase, we've assumed that we're going to get the 2.4% growth this year, which it doesn't look like we're going to hit. So this report was actually scheduled to be in your last month's financial reports, but the reason that we delayed it was because I wanted to investigate that first. So we did a lot of work, Kirsten's actually here as well, with QV, trying to figure out why our building consents didn't, you know, they don't directly correlate, but there is a definite you know, translation of building consents to rates eventually. So we were really surprised in those numbers. So we did talk to QV. Originally they had a backlog because they've got quite a lot of revaluation work happening at the moment, and we've talked to QV and double checked those figures are accurate, and yeah, they definitely are, and we aren't expecting quite to get to our 2.4%, but where we will hit, we're hoping is pretty close.
So would I be right in thinking that the building industry being shut down for 7 weeks or whatever it was with COVID has had an impact on that? Because it's just been delaying, and if you, like I'm working it out in my head roughly, and if that's the case, then we'll get another 0.6 or so in the 3 months to the June. We'll end up at about 2.1, and that 7 weeks is the difference. Is that?
Yeah, although again, this is numbers from 1st of July, so
Of course it is.
yeah,
No,
so
right.
so the lockdown was actually prior to this period. We couldn't quite understand, which is why we wanted to be completely sure when we presented this number to you that was accurate, how it hadn't translated. But yeah, potentially it's, yeah, there could be a number of things. Value of consents, it could have been that we got a heap done right before last year, and it's just a timing thing.
Yeah, seems like that it is a timing thing, but this is good to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, so through the chair, just I mean, yeah, you're using your estimation. It was only an estimation that we might get another 0.6 and end up at 2.1. I think what we really want to highlight today is if that does become the you know, the outcome, then potentially the 4.1% that we've currently got as our headline rates increase, and in year one of the LTP will go from 4.1 to 4.4, simply because our growth has been less than estimated. So I think it's really important you bear that in mind. Like I say, as we go into next month, into the hearings and the deliberations. Yeah.
Roger.
Thank you. Plus in the statement of contributions. And that's when we look at the other expenses. And from the full year forecast and the actual, there's already a difference of 12 million, which suggests that when we come to another 3 months, that's going to be considerably over. Now, I looked on the next page at number 8, where you've actually explained where the variation is on that. Can I make a suggestion to start with, that you actually tabulate that? Because it's actually quite difficult just seeing them run on in terms of the paragraph format there. But I extracted those and had the pluses and the minuses, and I can't make a $12 million difference. Why can't I? What am I doing wrong?
Sorry, through the chair, if you want, we can have a look at it together rather than go. Double check all these. So it does, but it is. It says mainly due, because we explain all of the variances. If we explained everything under 50,000, we'd have a page much longer than this. So yeah, it's all the major variants as well. So you'll never quite get there, but it should explain this most significant portion of it.
But the variance is quite considerable.
Yes,
so it's looking at 129% now, which means at the end of the year it'll be
No, so that 129% is because of that amount listed for the roading, the transportation database improvement. So that goes into other expenditure. So that's why the variance, that's why it's looking like it's tracking far ahead. But that change will be put through. So that'll be a forecast change. So that will increase the forecast for other expenditure.
And the reason that it's not in number 8 is that it hasn't been approved. It hasn't come through as a
Yes.
Okay.
So the database improvement was done right before the revaluations went out at the end of March, and so it was just the timing thing of getting the change, because we have a budget change process which it gets processed through the system and authorised by the correct delegations.
Yeah. Hey, so through the chair, if you can just indulge me for a minute, the other thing, Councillor, you should bear in mind is that the explanation for an item number 8 is, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, Sarah, I don't think I am though, it's actually explaining the difference between the $43 million of original budget versus the $41.5 million forecast. So that big long list of explanations in 8 is focused on explaining the $2 million difference in the forecast to the budget, rather than the 12 million that I think you picked up in terms of the difference between actual and full year forecast. So so we're actually only explaining 2 million. So my expectation is if you added up all the pluses and minuses, you would be in the region of, not exactly, but in the region of 2 million, not 12. It was never intended to explain the 12.
Okay.
Yeah. So that actual is that non-cash item of roading that
Will appear in there next time.
Next time, yes. Because we will, through the chair, we will have a much bigger difference between the forecast and the budget. We'll have a much bigger difference than $2 million when we take account of that when the forecast change comes through.
So it's my turn to ask a silly question now. Back on page 25 with your report, which I do like, but I'm not fully understanding. So what's additional lots granted about? There's a big difference between the actuals granted this year and the 212 from last year, but I don't even know what we're talking about. So
yeah, of that amount there is the only bit of that report that we don't produce. So that's produced by Amy in Business Improvement. So I can get back to you and I can send an email around.
Okay, that's
so
great. Thank you.
I just don't want to give you an answer what I think and it be wrong.
No, that's fine. Okay, thanks. Now, do we have any other questions or queries? Great.
Sarah, on page 27, it's got a reduction in revenue of 161,000 at Cambridge Pool. And then on page 28, it's got a reduction in revenue of 170,000. I know there's only 9,000 difference, but to me they should be same.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair, that would have just been an oversight. I think when it got updated and it would have been 2 changes, and so that explained the majority of the variance in the revenue, and so it probably never got re-looked at. So I'll get Nada to correct that for next month.
Mike.
Yeah, on the same area, under number 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth line down, it's got decrease in budget of 650,000 for the Cambridge Museum due to a deferral to 2023-24. So there was 800, I think 750 has been spent. So I just want to clarify, does it say 650 when in my mind it's 750, but the reason is because of the deferral or what?
Through the chair, I'd have to look into that. I'm not aware of the specifics of what that total budget was, sorry. Nada would have a better clue than I would because she does the budget changes, but yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good if someone could get back to us. And I did talk to Andrew about this particular thing, but there was no conflict.
Okay, no further questions. You've had to work out seeing you didn't even do the report.
Yeah, apologies for that.
But thanks, Sarah. That's great. So let's see. We have a recommendation on page 22, and that's to receive the report. Nada. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Marcus. And a seconder. Thanks, Mike. All in favour?
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's carried. Okay, item 8, Target 2021. Welcome, Julie.
Just one road closure for this month. It's one we didn't have a lot of notice on, so there isn't anything but objections in the report. We haven't had any official objections, but I have spoken to a resident in Tamero Road who says some of the residents up there are getting a little bit fed up with the number of events going through, but they haven't put anything in officially on that.
Okay. Right, questions or Graham?
At my service delivery, we talked about the decision to go ahead with this being in the hands of the team because there was some provisions there. And has that progressed, or is this just an anomaly coming back to us?
No, what happened was that was something that had already been approved by the councillors, and our legal advisor was happy with the risk involved in delegating that because it had already been approved for a different date by yourselves. When we came back and said, would we be able to do this on a more permanent basis? The answer was, I will go and have a chat to a few more people. And so she did. She spoke to Simpson Grierson and to a couple of the councils that have used that interpretation. And they've actually reversed that and have gone back to taking everything to council. So yeah, she wasn't happy with the risks involved in delegating that on a permanent basis.
Of course, I was
Expecting that if there was an objection, then that would come back to service delivery or to the council. And if it was just a straightforward, hey, we've got nothing, then it should be just a signing off. But it's obviously, well, bureaucratic. So
Yeah. So in terms of a one-off that's already been approved, the risk involved in that was relatively low if we did that on a permanent basis, and it wasn't going to save us any much in the way of time for the events and for ourselves, because we would still have to make allowances for time to make sure that if there were any objections, we had time to take it to a meeting anyway.
Thanks for that. Any Marcus?
move the recommendations.
Okay, and seconded by Lou. I'd just make a comment. There seems to be a lot more of the Targa in Waipa than usual this year, but I mean, from my point of view, that's great. But yeah, so if there's no other comments, I'll put the motion. So Marcus and Lou, you've got that. Yep. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's carried. Thanks, Julie. Okay, item 9. Welcome, Bruce and Liz. The floor is yours.
So listen to your team. Well, I think you're going to hand over to Liz. The capacity is the main manager.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm happy to take questions as we go along, but I'll take the report as read. Just a couple of highlights I might just make mention of. First of all, the photo on the front page is actually the Scout Jamboree that we had Christmas over a year ago. So this is pre-COVID. So we hosted 3,600 Scouts. It was a national jamboree. We had 600 turn up every second night, and they stayed for a one-night, overnight wilderness experience with us. And they did a lot of, I guess, activities on the water, but also activities on the land as well. So yeah, that was pretty neat, actually. It was a really good experience. We are hosting another jamboree, in fact, in a year's time. It will be significantly smaller, which is probably, yeah, we're well experienced with Scouts now, so we know what to look for. So yes, like I said, we held that about a year ago. Obviously in March we had COVID hit, so we were hit pretty hard. There was very little we were able to do, given the 100 person, once we entered into that alert level, we still really weren't able to operate. We largely deal with large events, so it's been a relatively quiet year. But in saying that, we've now have for some time, I guess, been back into full capacity. We've got, I guess, quite a few changes about to, I guess, make itself known to the domain. So first of all, our new event calendar is out. We've got a number of new events that we're really pleased to be able to host. A couple of those include the two new Waka Ama events. We've also got the Great Kiwi Summer Expo, which is a kind of a boat show related type of event. We've just had and completed the Ulysses Motorcycle Rally, which came through last weekend. And yeah, that was actually, those sorts of events make, I guess, a huge economic impact to Cambridge, I believe. New product, so you've seen a photo in there of the glamping. So that's a new product that we've been working on with an external provider, and very, very popular. Most weeks you'll see that TP type look, either it sort of tends to switch between the top camp and the lower camp. But yeah, that's just a new product that we've been able to provide. Some of the other changes that we're looking to make, and I guess when you've been around as long as I have at the domain, you're always looking to tweak things. You know, the environment is always changing, and it's really important that we keep everybody safe, make sure that all of the events that we held there are appropriate to the domain. So some of the, I guess, issues we have had, and one of the changes we're looking to make is that for a couple of events, there may be some nights that we choose not to overnight people. And that's largely due to the abuse of alcohol that we've seen over the years. So there'll be a small impact, I guess, to our financial side of things, but I think overall it's probably something that our reputation is probably going to be damaged if we continue to allow this kind of thing. Also, our neighbours are never that excited when they're kept awake all night either. So these are the sorts of things that we're looking to make small changes to. Also, the recycling and general waste is something I guess we're all quite well aware costs are increasing. So we're looking to make some big changes in that area over the next 5 years. So I did in my report outline some of the changes, but I've also spoken around this table previously about maybe all public reserves not accepting general waste in the same way that we have. It's quite usual for me at the end of my team, at the end of any large event, to have up to 30 or 40 broken deck chairs, sometimes a sofa or two. Also a lot of broken gazebos that the expectation is that we will actually dispose of it and pay for that disposal. I don't think that's something that is generally going forward, something that we should continue to do. So I've outlined there some changes, working with the event hosts on these changes, and so far they've actually been really supportive of it. So really the onus is going to be on the person coming to the domain around what they choose to bring, and hopefully what they choose now to bring back with them. So it's not around us disposing anything, you know, what we have done in the past. So yeah, so just lastly, like I say, I've got a new event calendar out there for next summer season. It has already changed. This is a several weeks old. It's always a moving target. There's some new events to be put in there, some date changes, but yeah, by and large, that's just gives you a sense anyway of what we're likely to be delivering. This, of course, is just what's happening. Large events where most of the site is actively used. It does not include all the bookings in the Sir Don Rowland Centre. And what I can tell you is that that centre has come back in full force. Just to give you a flavour of what we've done just over the last few days. So we had a big boxing match on Saturday night. We had, of course, the Iron Fist. We've done several of these before, but we had an All Black Liam Messam who was fighting in the last fight, so that drew a crowd of about 400. The night before we had the Cambridge Rotary dinner, so I know some of you were there with Greg Murphy, who was a guest speaker. And the night before that, we had the Balanced Farm Environment Awards. So, you know, we are busy and we are certainly back to normal, you know, levels of activity, conferencing in the centre. And that's why my voice is croaky, because hasn't been a lot of sleep. Yes.
Could you?
Program of events that you're projecting. So between the events that you're having in the centre and then the other events that are coming and using the park. How would you say you are in this projection compared to what was your peak year before COVID? Are you pretty much?
We're back.
We're back 100%.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's
Yes.
fabulous.
Yeah. So we're really pleased about that.
Yeah.
Look, look. I think the last time I made a comment here around we're only 4% behind our budget, and then the following week, Auckland went into lockdown. You know, any of that kind of stuff affects us greatly because, you know, if you've got a wedding and 3/4 of your guests are living in Auckland, then there's no wedding. So all going well, we should be able to continue on in this you know, in what we call a normal year. So I'm not anticipating too many more, you know, issues or hiccups along the way.
Great.
Mm.
So just flowing on from that and adding to what we've got out there, which is fabulous. Sounds as if the Avantidrome and the cycling is back to pre-COVID levels, apart from a World Cup event, but also with field days coming back. So really the overall event flow for Waipa is expected to be really contributing to a good level of growth in the economy.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you're right. The international event is the only one that I know of that's probably been, you know, that's not likely to return. But I guess, you know, for this particular domain, you know, we've only ever really been a domestic, you know, tourism provider. You know, we don't do many international events, so I would expect that this would have returned, you know, to its capacity in the time frame that it has. That's no surprise to me. Because we just haven't been reliant on, you know, campground is not reliant on overseas visitors as other campgrounds might be. I suspect that other, you know, holiday parks around New Zealand have been hit harder because they don't have those international tourists. We've never really played in that space. It's we've largely been a domestic provider.
No, so thanks for that, Liz, and congratulations too. Well done. It's great to see that. There might be some more questions. No, okay. Thanks very much. Thanks, Bruce. Again, we have a recommendation on page 40. Thank you, Roger. Could I have a seconder, please? Thanks, Lou. All in favour? Contrary, no. Has carried. Now we have a resolution to exclude the public. Thanks, Mike.